Good day. Welcome to the Strong Ambition Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into training, nutrition, and the mindset it takes to be a successful entrepreneur with Joe Marcoux. Joe Marcoux has been on the show before. He's a client and a friend of mine. And if you go way back to episode 49, as this is ironically episode 94, but go back to that episode because you'll hear his story. Joe Marcoux is a sales coach for coaches. So he's guided me and he guides many other people who have an uncomfortable time with trying to sell their product that they want to be confident in. And he has an amazing program to make you feel confident about it called the SOS Dojo. So check out that episode because we talk more about it on there. And we talk about how unique his story is, as he had many things he had to overcome. And he even exposes a very vulnerable moment that he had where his ex-wife cheated on him with one of his friends, but how he was able to take gratitude from that moment to make him a better person. And so there's so much more in that episode. I highly recommend, if you haven't heard it, go check it out. But today we're going to dive more into what kind of a mindset it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And Joe is very successful. You'll hear about just how good his business is doing now and the ambitions he has for it. Plus, he really constantly talks about how much the training and nutrition that we're doing together affects him in a positive way. And all of the shifts that he's taken, how he had a lot of these preconceived notions about training and nutrition before, and how he's evolved that over time since we've been working together and the great success we've had. So you'll get to hear firsthand how my program has made a big impact for him. But we'll also dive into some questions he had for me, and I wanted to leave it open for that, about TRT, as he was curious, because he's in his 50s, how can we optimize his testosterone? And so if you're someone curious about this, we dive into this because we want to look at all the natural things that he can do, the things he can take responsibility for initially, maybe some supplements that he could add before we go down the rabbit hole of getting into test therapy, because then we're talking about injecting needles. And if he does want to go down that, then what are the steps we'd have to do in order to prepare ourselves for it? So it is a really fun kind of counseling session near the end. So you're going to learn a lot from this episode because me and Joe go back and forth with the entrepreneur mindset. And this applies to anyone who wants to be successful in their career and how training and nutrition influences it. And it's a really fun discussion at the end, how we can optimize our hormones better for health, especially when you look at the things that are the lower hanging fruit that people are unaware of. And just as a side note, as you are currently listening to this episode in the first week of September, I had mentioned on the last podcast, and sure enough, the Metabolic Cookie Monster program is live this week. And so for this week only, this program will be discounted at a rate, and I'll give you a bonus because you're a Strong Ambition listener. You're listening to this podcast, which means you care about this podcast. And if you get on a call with me and you use the promo code Strong Ambition, I'm going to give you another free month of training when you sign up. So if you want more details about this program, please reach out to me, whether it's via email or on Instagram, because just for this month, it's the cheapest price it'll ever be again. And again, I'm going to give you that little discount because I want to work with people who have strong ambitions and who are really committed to making big change. And you'll get to hear a lot in this episode about how I work with people and how much I help optimize people in their lifestyle and in their routine. So without further ado, here is Joe Marcoux. Welcome, Joe Marcoux. How are you today, sir?
Dude, I am so thrilled to be here with you and sharing some of my experience with you. I'm awesome. I'm doing fantastic. How about you, my man?
That's great. I love this energy. Just so people know, Joe is genuinely like this. Like you are just positive energy almost every single time I meet you.
Thanks, man.
It's great. And I appreciate it. You come in with energy. I'm great too. I'm good. As I actually just signed up a new client. You'll love that. And then, things are going with harvest. They're going pretty good so far. My dad's got a smaller crop this year, so it's going to run pretty quick. And we're in the midst of harvest. So in the evenings, I go help him. And it's going to be a busy couple of weeks, but it'll be a bit shorter than it has in the past. So
good for you and good for your dad, I hope. So right on.
Yeah, decent crop. I think from my understanding is the wheat looks good. The canola, not so good. There was a lot of rain earlier in the year. And soybeans are actually look really good. And it's really interesting how that crop's just changed so much over the years. My dad was like one of the first guys around here to do it. Now everyone does it because my dad calls them poor man beans Basically, they take minimal chemicals and care, and they're super resilient to wet, hot summers.
Oh, nice.
So you can, very profitable, right?
Nice. Good for him.
Let's dive into what we're doing here today. So, Joe, you've been on the show before. You've told your story, but we're going to dive deeper in this story because today we're going to talk more about the mindset that it takes to be an entrepreneur. Because I think you'd be a great guy to talk to. So people can appreciate, how successful you've been, but what it takes to get there, I think is super important. How you fit fitness around all that. We'll talk about your fitness journey working with me. So let's start off with where you are at now. And I think is helpful, like how you see yourself as a business owner, kind of describe how, and just honestly, whatever comfort you have for describing your level of success. And then we'll kind of dive into your story, what you had to climb to get there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if you had asked me this question 2 months ago, I would have said, you know what, entrepreneurship, which it is at times a kick in the balls. 2 months ago, I got literally shocked with some levels of attrition into the business, had to make some shifting, and I had hired more people. So the challenge with this is that, and I heard Elon Musk say this, being a CEO or a business owner is like looking into the abyss while eating glass. Like it's a decision that you make that, yeah, I'm going to be a business owner. I think this misconception is that the moment that you own a business, you're successful. And like, here's the thing, the vast majority of businesses within the first 3 years fail. Okay. Then after that, as you go through growing pains, like I'm experiencing, where now, it's year 4. Now I've got more people on my team. Now I've got to be able to make up the difference to be able to pay these people. So 2 months ago, even last month, I didn't essentially pay myself. I made sure everybody else got paid, which I know that there's a Mike Michalowicz's book, right? Pay yourself first. I get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I got paid. The company owes me money. Now, here we are this month. Like the light at the end of the tunnel is something that, as mindset goes, it's like I'm constantly being tested. And as a business owner, as a CEO, the tests are always going on, because what do? As a CEO, you're solving problems and then delegate. And as I'm getting better at the delegation part, I can free up more of my time so I can do the things that I'm more passionate about to be able to grow the business. So 2 months ago, like June, July, they were tough months. Now all of a sudden things really turn around. Like last week, Ryland, it's as if the perfect storm, and I'll put into this, like what your dad is doing. What he did at the beginning of the season is he planted seeds.
Right.
He planted seeds. Now, whether you're a person of faith or not, okay, whether you believe in a higher power, in God, the universe, source, call it what you will. We know that if you plant a seed, right? You plant a seed, you trust, you have faith that you trust that this thing is going to grow as long as you nurture what you need to do with this seed. And in some cases, like they're super resilient. So that's literally what I started doing in June. It's like the shit hit the fan or the fit hit the shan. And then it's like, all right, I got to start. And I started planting seeds, and I was like telling my team, let's just go with it. Let's go with it. And there's this trend that was a downward trend for the SOS Dojo. Fast forward to 2 months later, and now the trend is completely different. So over the course of 4 years, this is what the trend looked like. It was up and then a little bit down, then up and then a little bit down, then up. So I went through this down phase knowing, and it doesn't mean that it was easy, because it's, again, you got to let go of the ego. And if there's a mindset thing in all of this that can also relate to training, is especially now at the age of 53, is I got to drop my ego more than ever. That's my own personal journey, my own work, because I still want to be high energy. And yet I also believe in a level of stoicism so that I don't have like these emotional roller coasters. So I have a mindset coach as well. And I can tell you that a year ago, I would have been in panic mode. This year, regardless of how tight money was and having to dive into my line of credit to be able to make things work and everything else, I was like, I know this is going to be fine. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, planting those seeds, and it's like, I know I'm going to eventually get stronger. I know I'm eventually going to get leaner with all of the same thing. Just trust the process, have faith. Last week, Rylan, the amount of business that came in is like, last week I did more inbound business than I did in the first 2 years combined in 7 days. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
like
great.
I told my staff last week, we had a conversation. I said, okay, guys, I got one client came to me and said, I want to have 100 people into your 100. And then 30 days later, we're going to add another 250. That's 350. We're literally like, it's like exploding.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yeah. So now the problem was, okay, how am I going to make sure that everybody gets paid, and what I'm going to now I got to hire more people.
Yeah, literally a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. And I think it's so important that people, you had that translation to fitness. It's almost like taking an injury. It's like missing workouts when you don't mean to. It's the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of your life. And entrepreneurship and fitness are great analogies. It's probably one of the best because it's all up to you, and it's something you have to do for the rest of your life, right?
Yep.
And the more you take care of your fitness and health and your business, it's all up to you, and it's just going to have ebbs and flows, and that slow growth is super important to have that patience. And how long have you been entrepreneur, just so people have a sense of it?
On and on. Well, I mean, I'll say my entrepreneurial journey started at the age of 20.
Okay.
My first store that I opened when I was in retail. So it's been 33 years. Now I've had moments where I sold my business. I went and worked for somebody else. I've always looked at, even though when I was a sales rep for a company, the territory was mine. Mm-hmm. And it was even as a rep working for someone else, it was my business. So entrepreneurial and involved in sales for my whole career. I mean, so it was like 35 years. So yeah.
Right. So a long time. And to appreciate for people, and I think this is what really hit me about you when, because you're into your 50s, and it was like you had this eagerness and drive that I felt like I didn't even have, and I'm in my 30s, and I have not established my business nearly as much. And it just dawned on me. It was one of the chats we had with you and Mitch. Although I know you've changed your opinion about naps, but it also told me how you felt about your drive. And we were having a conversation. You're like, yeah, I was just thinking about, like, I was tired. And it was like, maybe a nap. So, come on, nap. And later on, you said, actually, naps are efficient. And you realize that there is a promising, revitalizing thing.
Naps save lives.
It's saved lives. It's better than coffee, right? But
totally.
However, the respect that I was like, whoa, this guy is in his 50s. There's no way he's looking at his retirement. He's thinking about, how can I grow? And that internal drive, that competitiveness is so vital in this lifestyle, this entrepreneur lifestyle. As you mentioned, ups and downs. And the best description I heard on a Tim Ferriss podcast was that it's a bipolar lifestyle, that it's high highs and low lows. Yeah. And you just have to accept that it's bipolar. And so you are going to feel really good and really bad. There is no in between. And if there's in between, something's coming around the corner, which could be a good thing or a really shitty thing. And no matter what, this too shall pass. So a really bad stint as you had, it's like, okay, this will pass.
Yeah, the light at the end of the tunnel could be, my buddy Rusty, who's my mindset coach, said, the light at the end of the tunnel could also be a train heading your way. So it's like, and it is, because now it's like, okay, here's all the seeds that you planted. And it's like, and they're coming at me. So now it becomes this, here's another problem that I have to solve with, right? And it's all about how I deal with it. Because I would want and expect my team to step up. Bedros Koulian shared this with me about a month and a half ago. He said, you know what, for my team, I've got a hemorrhage for my team to bleed. That's the position that I've placed myself in as CEO. And that's like, wow. And so without fitness to be able to relieve stress, and without fitness to be able to, because fitness is something that gives me the energy to do it.
Right.
And this is where, when we first met, and we, I go back to you in terms of my journey with you, and I'll message you at times. I get overwhelmed and I take too much on, and then I miss out on workouts. And then it's this spiral, and I've got to snap out of it. And it's like, okay, it's not the end of the world if I miss a workout, if I can make up for it.
Right.
Because I can, you know this, on the app, I'm like, and I'm very accountable. Like, it's like, hey man, I'm missing the workout today. And I like, that's one of the things I appreciate, the fact that you give me a certain level of flexibility. I mean, you're my coach. I don't want to let you down. Like, and that to me is critically important. Like, a good coach is a coach that I just do not want to let down. So I don't want to let you down, Ryan. That's why it's like, hey bro, here's what's happening. Or, hey man, I went a little nuts on the weekend, and because I'm a human, right?
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, because that was, you talked about this when we hung out and fished, and it was like, you're probably one of the best clients for keeping yourself accountable on your calories on the weekend, where like, even if I had a coach, I would just say, yeah, it's a big surplus. And you're like, no, I think this is around 4,000 calories, might have been 5,000 calories. And I'm just like, there's a certain point where I don't even count, which isn't great, but it's like, but then you said, but that's how much I commit to being, to take your coaching serious. I'm like, again, these little character traits I look at this is why you're so successful in your business, because your attention to detail and your accountability on yourself, right? Because as much as I'm holding you accountable, it's not like I force you to do these things. This is within you, and I'm just allowing you to have the path. I
got to punch it in, and I'm going there. Or it's like, whether I decided to, occasionally smoke a little something or have a beverage, which typically, like, I'll be very transparent. I know that if I have any product with THC, whether it's a gummy or smoke, I tend to just go, the tendency is 99 times out of 100, I'm just going to start to eat.
Oh yeah.
And so I know that going in, so I don't do it often. And there's sometimes I'm just going to a friend's celebration. Like, I had my buddy Shane's birthday over the weekend, and he put together a brisket. He had burnt ends, which is like essentially big pieces of bacon. I mean, so I knew going in, I'm having a surplus. I'm just going to enjoy my life. It's totally okay. I'm still writing down what I think, or putting it in. And it's like, holy crap. So if I don't do that and I just poo-poo the idea, then I'm not going to be realistic in terms of how I'm going to feel. And to me, it's also important that there's a vanity piece in this. I want to look good. I mean, I deal with a lot of people within the health and fitness space as well. And even like right now, we're the company, the SOS Dojo, we're going to start dealing with a lot of people in real estate, and people will make a judgment on how we look. And if I look in the mirror and I'm really pleased with myself, it just gives me a level of confidence. Like, think of where you and I have been now I've been a coaching client of yours for what, 2 years?
Yeah, I think we're coming up on that. Yeah.
So think of where I started. Like, right now, I weighed myself this morning, 174.5 at 14%, according to my Teeny body fat scale. And I mean, I've got abs. I feel really good with that. I've been bumping up my calories, and I feel like better with the slightly more calories. And again, it feels really good to be able to, okay, I'm about to hit the shower. I know I can walk into the bedroom, and I like Shauna's giving me the compliments compared to 2 years ago. Like, I had back fat that was like, what the fuck? Like, and now I'm not saying I'm in competition shape. I'm very happy with the way, and again, there's work involved. It doesn't mean that I don't, like I just said, I had some briskets, I had some burnt ends, I had some cake and cookies on the weekend, and 90% of the time I'm on point. And the way that you've set this up, I feel so freaking good, and it allows me to bring the energy to the work that I do. And as a CEO of a busy company and a growing company, and I'm nowhere near like the $1 billion range. However, it's still very exciting, because without these workouts, that now it's like, I got to put this into the schedule. And I mean, I get it done. Sometimes I get it. I have it scheduled where it's like, oh, something else has come up, and I push it, but I get it done. I mean, it's got to get it done.
Well, that get it done mentality, it serves you, right? Now, I'd be curious on your evolution about, and I want to hit this. Let's hit this right now because I'm going to forget about it.
Sure.
This comes up in entrepreneurship a lot, the word ego. And I think I would love to hear your interpretation of what it means, because it's the Ryan Holiday book of ego is the enemy. And I suppose I feel like I sit on the opposite end of the spectrum of a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of if I wasn't in an industry that really complimented and kind of, I don't want to say demanded, but somewhat demanded, you have to take it upon yourself to be successful as a fitness instructor. It gets really hard to make money otherwise. In terms of like, I'm unaware of if I have such an ego that is holding me back, but I would be curious to yourself, how do you feel ego is the enemy of some people? How do you feel the ego is something that people need to push back against and to understand how to navigate?
Yeah, there's something to be said about the saying, you're better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And in that philosophy, my belief is there's 3 C's. And again, I'm in sales and sales coaching. And a lot of people hear sales and they immediately go, right? Ego is big and it's icky. And it's, to me, I want to turn that on its head. First, you need confidence. So there's a level of understanding, is confidence standing on stage and, take it in. No, that's not what I mean. Confidence is understanding that there's practice. And with the practice and putting in the repetition, having that level of confidence and belief that we can accomplish something. So is that ego, or is it putting in the reps? Then there's conviction in terms of knowing that I, as well as I am, and the ask and the thing that's created us all, whether you believe in that or not, like I'm connected to that and I believe in that. That's my conviction. The thing is, the 3rd C is control. So the warrior in the garden knows how to decimate, be completely dangerous and kill everybody, and understands that they have control. And they choose not to. They choose to be peaceful, the peaceful warrior. So the ego in all of this is, yeah, okay, I can go into the gym and I can like completely go in hard and then understand that I got to pull back, because yeah, I could probably, throw 3 plates and start squatting. And then I'm going to pay the price because now my ego got in the way, as opposed to, you know what, I'm going to do 2 plates and I'm going to do great reps and I'm not going to get hurt and I'm still going to be able to grow at 53 to still put on muscle. And like, I mean, I let my ego get the best of me in terms of putting on extra weight when I'm tired, and then I get hurt. And I've had injuries,
Right.
Last winter that I'm still dealing with now. What's interesting is now I'm really listening to how my body feels. And if I have any level of fear, as opposed to in my mind, I'm like, I know I can do it. And it's like, just listen to your body and just put the weight down.
Yeah.
Because this is a long game. Like, it's the long game. So there's an ego piece that we have to listen to. I got to listen to myself. And I also, it's not a question of like, you got to be honest with yourself. That's not where I'm coming from. Because I believe that, yes, you can do more. And I just recently saw a podcast from, I can't remember his last name. He's a scientist and coach, fitness coach, Mike something.
Mike Isabel.
Yes. Yeah. He's very popular right now. And like, and he made a valid point. You can go in and train heavy and train hard. And then you can go in and, like train to the level where you're at a level 11 out of 10, and you could do it. The gains that you get out of that and the fatigue that you would get out of that crazy level 11 set, it's counterproductive. So you're better off, like what you'll say to me, Joe. It's like, Joe, I want you to go leave a couple of reps in the tank. And then based on what you observe, based on the numbers that I give you, hey, you know what, Joe? It's okay to deload for the rest of the week. And that's the symbiotic relationship of a coach that it's really hard to do it alone. I mean, and my results speak volumes of it. Where I was training alone and doing nutrition alone and doing it on my own, I mean, it's 10 pounds ago, the difference in terms of composition, the difference in terms of my energy, the difference in terms of my own confidence. So my ego is boosted in that regard because I feel good and I feel confident. And yet I'm not an egomaniac where, I'm not lifting my shirt up and, and I'm not looking for people to go and compliment me. That's not it at all. The only person I want to compliment from is my wife. And that's in the privacy of my own bedroom.
Very important to get confidence there.
For sure.
I want to come back to the just a good analogy there that made me think about it, how this applies to people in business and in life. The whole thing you just said about ego in the gym, taking on too much. It doesn't matter if you can do it. Can you recover and sustain it? Right? Hey, do you want to do 16-hour days, 7 days a week?
Not for work. Nope.
Can you recover and sustain it? Can you perform every single day like that? Now, there are times in your business and in your fitness where it's like, it's PR time, motherfucker. Let's go. Let's put on those 3 plates. Let's do a 3-4 rep max. Let's test ourselves. And
let's hop on an airplane. Let's go speak at an event.
Right.
And fly back home. You don't have a day off and you're right back at it and you're grinding. Hey, I do that. And then it comes to a point where I still have to go, okay. I mean, the difference is my clients are going to book me on a first class seat. I'm not going to be sitting at, like at the last seat in the back. And I'm not saying that to impress anyone. It's to impress upon you that, okay, how can I recover better? Yeah. So now I'm sitting in a lounge. I'm not sitting in everywhere else. I get meals. And I told you, I even told you, I said, yeah, on my flight back from the World Conference that I just spoke at in Vegas, at a first class flight, they were feeding me and I just kept eating.
Enjoying it. Yeah.
I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I recovered, and so I had to travel all day Sunday to get home at 8:00 at night. And by the time I unpacked and everything, it's like 9:30, and then I'm going to bed, and I'm up at 5:30 the next day, and like no day off.
Back in it.
So you're right. Can we take? I mean, if I chose to do that every week, I'd be burnt out. Completely. I'd be overtraining or overworking and not balancing my life.
Well, and that's really, I think, the take-home message to a big part of what the ego can do wrong, right? Yeah. And knowing the right time to say yes and no. And the gym has the analogy of like, can I do that weight? Do I need to do that weight? And
do I need to do that?
Do I need to do that weight? Do I need to do that exercise? Like the ego doesn't want you to do the mobility exercise because it doesn't prove much to you. The ego wants you to do the bench press when your shoulders still hurt, you know? And so it's important that we recognize those little parts in the problem with the ego, where it's like doing things for what we feel like is a confidence boost. But you also said a really key thing to understand what confidence is more about. Confidence is about doing something so much confident you can do it. And so realistically, if you want to grow confidence, don't do the shit you're good at. Do the shit you're not good at. Because then that's growth of new character. Yeah. And that's something that, I mean, I always say I'm an alcoholic doctor. I don't always say what I do. And mobility is my real hard. The easy hard is the strength training. I'm similar to yourself, where it's like, can I push another hard set of this? Yeah, for sure. Do you want to push a hard set of like that, overhead to handcuff reach? Do you want to do a bunch of Supermans? Do you want to do a bunch of T-spine rotations? No, that kind of sounds boring. It's like, but that's your hard, and that's actually the stuff that's going to pay dividends, right? Right.
And it is funny. It reminds me of that country music song. I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was. And that's the thing. Yeah. You could pull that off, and the price that you end up paying because of your ego is just, it's too much. Mm-hmm. And again, it's like, I have a vision board and goals and dreams. It still comes back to, okay, if I want to be the best in the world at something, you still got to do the work in private to get praised in public.
Right. Yeah.
So the work in private for me, is I gotta, whether it's training at the gym or at the lake, I've got some power block dumbbells at the lake with some mats and a skip rope. And so I've got limited stuff, and the way that you've programmed it, I've got ways to be training legs. My legs are fried with dumbbells. Like, it's amazing some of these movements that you've got me doing now. Again, and it's awesome. And, like the idea of doing the things in private, because I've got friends of mine that are in their 50s and like, I worry about them. Like, I'm starting this now it's bizarre where I'm starting to see some people where it's like, geez, man, if you don't start taking care of yourself, you're not going to last very long. Because we've already had people from high school, like they've fallen off,
right?
And it's over. And it's like this gift that we have of the present moment of life. And I'm not saying that they're, if something happens, something happened. The thing is, I'd rather be fit and healthy until I'm dead.
Yes.
Right. Because and I can't remember the guy's, he was, I think it was Tim Larson, the Far Side guy. I think he wrote a book, or Dave Barry might have been his name. Anyways, be fit and healthy until you're dead. How to be fit and healthy until you're dead. And I mean, it's funny because it's just a quality of life. Like, I'd rather have that energy throughout. And the thing about, and I saw just recently, and I wrote about this on the Daily Cup of Joe, where this is my daily email to my client list. And Steph Curry has done 500 3-point shots a day. 500. That's 14,000 a month. Over the last 15 years, that's 2.5 million.
Jesus.
Yeah. He's the number one 3-point shooter in the NBA history. I think the number, and I checked the number before I put it in my email, it's 3,786. 2.5 million in private for 3,786 during gameplay. So his discipline has related to repetition, has related to his confidence. Like, the guy can shoot from mid-court, and I'm confident that he's likely going to hit that. Like, fuck. Because he's put in 2.5 million plus shots.
It's amazing.
Right?
That's such a valuable lesson for people when it comes to fitness and life, is private work. It's private work that makes you really who you are. It's when no one's watching, and when no one actually is there to support you. It's you versus you. And when, like, the fact that, Curry is doing this day in and day out, I highly doubt people are forcing him to do it, but it's his craft, and he's going to do that. And that's what more people need to appreciate with their fitness, is that all of this is going to be, most of this is going to be far away from any compliments or encouragement. It's just like the responsibility you have to take. It's your life, it's your responsibility, and how big of a change that comes from it. And then you do get way more compliments and all those things down the road, but you're also talking about 1 year, right? And that's math on 1 year. And how many years has he done it? Again, we're talking about so much. And this is a Muhammad Ali quote that he said that the fight is won or lost far away from bearing witness. He's talking about the years and the days away from the fight, the training, when no one's around, the room is dark and it's just you versus you. Those are the days that really define the fight. And it's literally what makes a fighter. Because in a boxing match, you train your conditioning for sure. But in the boxing match, there's very few decisions that are made that are not already pre-derived from the last 3 months of training, 4 months of training. Because it's, when someone's hitting you, it's stimulus at that point. You're not having a conversation with your strategy. It's like, I have programmed this in myself to have an instinct of, when someone hits me here, I do something about it. Or you don't, because you didn't program that. And then all of the conditioning that you have to do so that you know what that feels like in a fight. Okay, this is the feeling I felt in my conditioning. I push past this way. And if, like, when people get really nervous for a fight, that's normal. But the thing I always tell them is, like, do everything you can up to that point, and now it's just a test and check. Now it's just the formula of what you put together for the last 3 months gets tested. So just wing it, right? Like, just
the unconscious competence will kick in at that point. And it's no different than in the world of sales, right? When somebody gives you an objection, if you've prepared in advance and you've heard this before hundreds of times, automatically, it's like, if somebody said it's too expensive, automatically, thanks for letting me know how you feel. What exactly are we comparing this to? It's just automatic. You don't even think. And that's that requires practice. And going back as an entrepreneur, you got to put in the time to practice, to train. You got to put in the time to either delegate somebody to cook your meals or go out and buy the meals, what I do is I use a sous vide, for example. Like yesterday, I did 12 chicken breasts. I put them all in, and 90 minutes later, right? Because I can't just stand in front of my freaking laptop all day. If I do, I'll go bananas. So I love to cook. So I made four, and four, 3 different ways. Put them in the bags.
Nice.
Come back up, and now I've got all this chicken ready to go for the rest of the week. Yeah, it's a blast.
The work that you have to do ahead of time, right?
Well, that's just it.
And I really want to highlight this because this is a question I meant to ask you, because you talked about like what we do in the SOS Dojo, which is that you talk about this unconscious competence, and I always talk about that, creating that stimulus for boxers.
Right.
And you call it the SOS Dojo. And I never got this out of you. Did you formally do any sort of martial arts in the past? Or...
I did.
Okay, tell me about that experience.
So when I was younger, first of all, I always had an affinity towards martial arts. Like ever since I was a kid, I was always fascinated by the art forms that exist, whether it's from India or Asia. I also appreciated the culture. There's a level of honor and respect that is found there. And then I started taking Taekwondo and learned a lot and got to a level of conditioning and flexibility and strength, both physically, really mentally was amazing. Like it was awesome. And did some tournament fighting and whatnot. And then I learned a little bit about Kung Fu, which is a completely different art form. And there's, again, before MMA was even a thing. And what was valuable from that was the place of learning. In either case, it was a safe place to make mistakes, which is, I've added that to the way that we coach sales, so that when somebody is in the sales objection system dojo, they're practicing with others that have different levels of skill. And people get tested. So you can't just buy a black belt. You got to earn it. And then we get people who become black belts. We give them the opportunity to teach others. And when you teach, you really grow your level of mastery of something. Like you're an excellent boxer. So when you've taught people how to box, your skill set literally quantum leaps. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, my own background in martial arts. I don't practice martial arts today. I practice more of, lifting, flexibility, and what you and I do together in terms of fitness. The principles in terms of what I believe in as far as honor, respect, communication, mastery still exists today. And the dojo is a place that, like, I have this logo. It's a sign of respect to others. So, because I don't want people to come into a place where they're already feeling nervous about how they communicate. And I want to help people eliminate but, stuttering, or long pauses. I want them to have that level of control, confidence, and conviction, similar to the warrior in the garden, without being the gardener in the war. Because if you're a gardener in a war, you're fucked. You're done. Right? Yeah. You're a warrior in a garden. You can choose, and the samurai chooses when to pull the blade out. It's like, I'm doing this now because I have no other choice. Right. And you can do that with the skill of communication. You can have people buy from you as opposed to you selling to them. And it's a skill.
I love that. The art form of it, like how you talk about the honor, and there's so much about that, like when it has to do with, it's a martial art. So you're learning an artistry, the discipline that you get from it. But there's, like you mentioned, like how there's levels and how there's respect given. And it's so lovely to see this in more martial arts. And boxing's a martial art, kind of.
Sure it is.
But here's the thing: it doesn't grip to as consistent within the culture to have the respect and the level. Like, it doesn't show you that levels respect enough, right? Depending on the gym you're in. Whereas, like, you have a white belt, all the belts, like that is a very important thing within the culture. The immediate respect that you're giving one another, not always there in boxing. Some people are there just because they're angry. And in a good gym culture, the respect ends up being given to your sparring partners. It's a beautiful thing, but it's not always inherent to the culture itself Whereas I see this translated super well for those who are introduced into martial arts, that you got to have respect. You got to have respect for your partners, and you got to understand where you are. You have to have a white belt mentality. And there's people who come into boxing and they are the white belts and they're arrogant. And so they get humbled, and they shouldn't even quickly. And they shouldn't even have that notion. You should just, I wish we had belts, right? And some places do it, and I've heard of them doing hand wrap colors, which is cool.
Okay.
We do a bit of a system of like fundamentals where you're not actually sparring, and then we do technical members. Then you have to make our competitive team, which is great because it shows that level. Whereas when I even started, it was just like you ask the coaches, like, hey, can I join sparring? And it's like, you can hit the bag pretty good. And they put you in the ring. And there was like no practice of defense, no clarifying that I knew defense, not giving you the tools of here's a guard, here's a slip, here's a roll. And then you learn on the fly. And so, which is really funny because it's almost like if you could imagine someone learning how to, I want to compare it to like playing floor hockey by yourself and shooting at a net. And being like, yeah, I can handle this. And you go into full contact ice skating because it's like, it's a whole different game. Yeah. I'm curious, did you find, how young were you when you started the martial arts, and how did that apply to your mindset in business?
16. And it applied immediately because I opened up my first fitness equipment store by the age of 20.
Right.
And so I was already into it and making time to training less in weights back then, got more into weightlifting in my 20s. I was into it by 18. I mean, I started lifting when I was 15. So I was doing a combination of both. And when you're young, I mean, your recovery was significantly faster. What also helped, though, with martial arts specifically, because, again, I got into bodybuilding and got into bodybuilding competition. There's no levels in that either. And there's just so much of this bro science that exists out there that, like it's training in a gym, different gyms, training alone at home. I mean, it's a completely different thing. The benefit of training, whether it's with a coach or in a dojo, for example, with the different levels, I mean, as a business owner, it helps me scale my business because my own members become my staff. So now they have an indoctrination of the culture, and then they bleed the culture back into the new members. So as this process, which, by the way, has been around for thousands of years. So now it's like, okay, let me take that model, which I honor and respect and I love, giving people a place to make mistakes and we'll correct them quickly, as opposed to as a bodybuilder or even as a boxer, you're getting the shit kicked out of you until, right? Like, at least if you're in a boxing ring, you're getting coaching. If you're a bodybuilder, if you don't have a coach, like, you're screwed. Oh. You're going to, like, there's so many mistakes that people make. And then it's looking it up on YouTube and bro science. And it's just, it's knowing what I know now, had I known then, right? Like the progress that could have been made under the right context with having guidance. Like, it's the hero's journey.
It is.
The hero's journey is hey, the hero leaves town, is going to, slay the dragon, doesn't know what the hell he's doing, meets a guide. The guide helps him get to the mountain, tells them how to train. They defeat the dragon, right? I mean, it's Harry Potter, it's Star Wars, it's Braveheart, you name it. Gladiator, they all have a guide.
Right. They need someone. And so let's dive into that, because you came from doing a lot of fitness and training in the past. And then you've mentioned a few things, but I'd love for you to hit on one or two other major things that you found were unique or different about my style that helped you out.
Oh, so first and foremost, I mean, the approach that you took from a science perspective, like I was always balls to the wall training. Since working with you, I'll give you an example. Like, I pick up on my recovery now better than ever. 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, right before we started training together, I was constantly dealing with either having a cold or a sinus infection. I haven't been on any type of medication for over 2 years. That's thanks to you. I'm sleeping better. And I already didn't have a problem with sleeping. I mean, my head would hit the pillow and I'm out. Like Shauna just doesn't get it. Like, and I've always slept well. The thing is I'm making a point of getting to bed earlier. I'll nap. My food intake and my protein intake, just a complete game change. Like I've come to a place where I truly believe that the obesity problem that we have is, I guarantee you a big part of it is stemming from the fact that people don't eat enough protein. There's not enough muscle. So there's a lack of muscle, not so much that there's a problem with being fat. If people would eat more protein, they'd be more satiated. They would be leaner. They would have more muscle on. Like, I mean, it's just, so you were able to help me shift that. Cause I mean, if you're really hungry, you're not going to go for the bag of chips. Right. If you're really hungry, go ahead and grab a chicken breast. And like that makes total sense. Some of the movements that I'm learning, and again, it's humbling. You want to talk about dropping the ego. Like you know this, Ryland. I mean, I'm a former Mr. Natural Canada. So again, I came with after doing that over 10 years ago. I mean, I'm looking at my 2013 was my last competition. And so here we are, that's 11 years ago. And I won my pro card in International Drug-Free Athletics. And drug-free, that's a whole other thing, because I want to talk to you about testosterone and testosterone replacement therapy before we're done, because I'm curious about that. But a lot of the things that I learned was like the amount of mobility movement that we're doing for my hips. Like, and I joke about it with Sean. I'm like, fucking Ryland with the hips, man. However, I can promise you, I'm not only going to be a grandfather, I'm going to be a great grandfather. My youngest daughter is the only one out of the kids that's married. And she just told me 3 weeks ago that her and her husband are talking about having kids. So it's like, dude, getting on and off the floor, no problem. Like, I mean, I can't even, what do you mean a problem? I mean, I jump off the floor. Right. I will be the great grandfather. Like, I plan on living well past 100, by the way. Like, my goal is 125. I know that sounds crazy. I'm putting it out there. And it's not decrepit in bed where I've got bed sores and I can't move. I'm talking like I'm going to be independently living alone or with Shauna, after the age of 100, where it's like, this guy's 100. He still drives. He still walks every day. He still lifts. I mean, I don't know how heavy I'm going to be lifting. It's besides the point. To be a great grandfather and on the ground, getting up with the kids, like, that's how beautiful is that? So that's a goal. That's a goal that I have in mind. So you've helped me with injuries the injuries are my fault due to my ego, and you've been helping me with mobility, like with the hockey stick and the internal external movements that I didn't have a clue, and I thought, right, I know a lot, or even at one point before being with you, I thought I knew it all, and then when I came to you, I went, okay, white belt mentality. Just, I don't know, fuck all. I'm just going to let this guy drive the bus and I'm just going to go along for the ride. And it's been freeing, because now, like, I don't think, like, my breakfast is the same. Like, because that's the other thing about being a business owner and a CEO, you guys, is that I make a lot of decisions every day. So I don't want to deal with decision fatigue. So that's a reason why I get up early and I get my non-urgent, important work done in the morning, so that by the end of the day, like, I'll literally tell Shauna when she's asking me things, I'm like, Shauna, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to even decide this. Just make the call. Because I've been making calls all day. Yeah. Right. So yeah, the stretching, and even the idea behind rest pause. Yeah. What a game changer that is, because as opposed to going balls to the wall failure, I can get to, okay, I've got one in the tank, stop, 15 seconds, go at it again, pump out another 3, 4, stop, pump out it again, another 2, stop, get another 1. And the amount of stimulus that I get without, like my joints don't hurt, bro. I was in my 30s and it was like, I mean, I was popping Advil.
Right.
I don't, if I'm using Advil, it's cause I don't know, like it's cause like I've hurt myself. Or I've got a major headache, and I don't get headaches. Like, yeah, it's rare that I'll take an analgesic. So yeah.
And I remember you still had such that no pain, no gain. You remember when I wrote low intensity activity days, what you were doing? You were doing the step climber on those days.
Yeah,
and then you were right in there like, yeah, I crushed it today. And you did that for the first couple of weeks. I'm like, you're not understanding the idea of low intensity.
Yeah. Slow down.
Slow down.
Now I'll go on the stair climber and I'm literally like stepping super slow.
Yeah, just nice, steady.
Yeah, because I like the climber and it's convenient because I have it. And I mean, yesterday, and I posted about this, my buddy Chris called me and he goes, "Hey man, you want to go for a walk and talk?" And I'm waiting for a new Fitbit. So I'm like, yep. Like, and I wasn't in the mood to go. I'm like, Chris, let's go. I wanted to catch up with my buddy. Mm-hmm. And instead of catching up with him around a table with wings or whatever, let's go for a walk. And we easily crushed 10,000 steps, even if I didn't have because we went a distance that I'm familiar with. So it's like, okay, for sure, hit the 10K steps. And what's interesting is like this week, after a big meal on Sunday, Monday morning, 178, Tuesday, 176.5, Wednesday, 174.5. And I went for the walk yesterday, right? So it's like, and my calories are still up.
Right. Yeah. You just, you get to understand your body weight more from actually studying it and recognizing what food you eat, the actions that you take, and how it all adds up. But let's dive into that TRT. So what are your curiosities around it?
So here I am at 53. Full transparency, I don't have the libido that I used to have when I was in my 30s. I've gone to talk to my doctor about it, and I've done some research online, and I've even spoken to some doctors in the United States. And there's different ways to be able to get testosterone replacement therapy. And again, am I a candidate? I mean, everything's working, right? I don't have ED, and this is not, I'm not here to impress anybody. And it's like, I'm not turning around saying I've got a 9-inch dick because what I'm saying though is that I love having a active sex life. I think it's part of being human, and it's important. I also want to be able to metabolize fat effectively. And I always said to myself after my competition days were over that I would look at better quality of life through science. And we're already, doing that with how you and I work together in terms of the science of proper training, the science of proper nutrition, the science of proper rest. So that to me is the macro at the bottom, right? Like these are the pillars. Now I'm looking at it of, okay, I'm not looking to compete against anybody else. I'm competing against me. Am I off? I mean, because I don't know. I mean, I've spoken to my doctor about it. And of course, a doctor in Canada, he would say, well, let's get your numbers checked. So I went to Dynacare and I got my blood work done. And the numbers for my age are very good. The question is, if you're in the US, the numbers in general are lower than where they could be.
Where is it, if you don't mind me asking?
400 is where I'm at.
Yeah, it's lower to mid.
Right. And optimal levels are at around the 1,000 range. And I don't know what the scale really means.
To 7. Yeah, I think 1,000 is like fucking high. I think 600 to 700 is what I've heard is more optimal. Okay. And it depends on when you're getting it done too, right? So if you got it done after a stressful week, your test can be down. If you had a lot of rest during the week and you train just kind of normally and nutrition's all on point, your test could be up. So that test is actually very fluid and based on what you're doing. If you came from a workout, it can actually change it. And sometimes I've heard it can go lower. I can't remember if it's lower or higher, but time of day also matters. So your
morning wood, right?
Morning. That's actually the canary in the coal mine. I've heard that. Like if you have that consistently, it's actually a really good sign. Yeah. So as you mentioned, like the things that you're already doing, right? Training, exercise, sleep. I think the major thing for you to look at is your stress levels and how well you're managing that. And are you doing a practice to control it? And so what I would, and this is something I would start with, because that's something without the TRT, in terms of, it could be taking a day and doing yoga. It could be that you do more mindset practice at the end of the day. So you make sure you unwind, meditation at the end of the day, so that at the end of the day, that cortisol gets lowered. Or maybe it is just the long walks, because the long walks naturally put you into more, like, it's a calming activity. And maybe you use that. This is something I'm a big fan of, using walks by yourself occasionally to do it as a thinking process.
Right.
And so that if you have, works so good, because no podcast, no music, you'd be amazed how many thoughts that you can get used to. And this is something I find so interesting in modern day people, how fearful we are of our thoughts. So that's why we have distractions all the time. Radio when you drive, or podcast, music when you're working out. And you have to ever watch those videos of Arnold, they had no music in the gym, right?
Right.
Working out without music is actually fine.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And when I'm in the gym and I'm not being distracted by shit, just me and like Shauna also knows, if I'm downstairs in my gym here at home, it's like I'm at church. Do not interrupt me when I'm in the temple.
Right. The temple. I love that. That's great. And it's really funny when you think about how humans evolved. We thought, like, we literally had time to think, and we weren't afraid of it. When I was in Thailand, I always remember looking at this one Thai guy at one of the resorts, just staring at the ocean for like a good half hour, an hour. And he was like one of the workers there, but he would just stare. And I'm like, that guy's just in thought and comfortable with it. And, over the years, I got more used to being comfortable with my thoughts. When I tell people I drive without the radio, they're like, are you a psycho? And it's like, no, I'm just not afraid of my thoughts. I like them.
That's good, Ryland. Love it.
And so I would start with things like that. How can you manage stress? Because you do have this business, so many people relying on you, so much money on the line. And so this is something that, in order to manage, we mentioned that we have this bipolar lifestyle we're challenging. How can you start bringing that down at the end of each and every day? Yeah. Again, many different ways that you can do it, but I would start with that for sure. You mentioned about supplements too prior off air. And so the one that I would consider, other than, make sure you have magnesium, because that should be a vitamin D.
Big time before bed. Big time.
Yeah. And then omega-3s. Those are the three main staples. Creatine for strength training. Are you on creatine?
I'm not.
Man, I don't know how some of my clients miss this.
It's on my list of, if I'm going to add something, it's going to be creatine. Because I've got like definitely a protein, definitely magnesium, omega-3s. I'm high dose vitamin D every day.
I would only do that during non-light, like when you're not getting light. Right.
Well,
so complement the year.
Because sometimes, like, I'm in my office right now. So if I, like, when I'm home and I'm during the week, like, I don't get outside. When I'm at the lake, when I'm working at the lake, I make a point of doing micro walks as well. But micro walks are like 10 minutes. So I get the sunlight, or I'll just go on the end of the dock and I'll pull my fishing rod out and I'll just stand there in the sun and I'll, hopefully catch something, You'll
be amazed that like 20 minutes can actually be a fair bit. And if you're worried about it, lower to about 1,000 IUs. And if you do have those indoor days, in about 3,000 to 4,000 IUs is probably pretty good, because you could be redundant on it. Now, the one that I've heard the best argument for, there's two. One is zinc, and the other is Tunga Ali. Now, this Tunga Ali is something that you would take for, like, it's kind of like creatine. You just take it over a long period of time, and it's a very subtle difference in the testosterone over a long period of time. And if you
Ali, I've never heard of this. Okay. This is awesome.
So I'll send you more info on it after. Pretty affordable too. It's like, I put it still like on the optional tier list, because it's not something you need. But if someone's trying to optimize their testosterone, that's a good thing to look at.
What's your thought of Tribulus terrestris?
I'd have to look at that one. I haven't heard of the Tribulus terrestris.
Yeah, that's been, again, I'm going back like 15 years, right? Like there were days where, it would say a trace mineral like boron would help with your testosterone. Boron,
I've heard of boron, yeah.
But which I can't confirm that, but yeah, I mean, Tunga Ali sounds like a wrestler or sounds like an
It
offensive
does.
lineman. Sounds like an offensive lineman in the NFL.
I do like that. That sounds like a definitely like a wrestler of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson's cousin, Tunga Ali.
Tunga Ali. Yeah, I like it. He comes out with a mask. Yeah. But that's Huberman talks about that, and he says that that's like one of his most recommended. Yeah. Now, ashwagandha has some suggestion, but the one thing I'll say is I only encourage people to use that over a period of time where they have high cortisol issues and they want to manage their cortisol effect on their testosterone. So basically save it for your cuts if you're really worried about it. So if you're going through a cut and that's going to increase your cortisol, you're in a lower energy state, that's going to, affect you. I did feel this help me during my bodybuilding prep. So like when I was really low calories, just getting headaches. I was like, fuck, am I going to have to take Advil or, some Tylenol all the way? And then I take it.
Your stomach too, right?
Immediately I was calmer. I was more relaxed. And so that definitely saved my prep. And that's again, and maybe you just have like a time period where you're worried about stress. You predict that stress is going to be an issue in your life, like for a month or so from business. That's where ashwagandha could probably help you prevent the lowering of testosterone. Nice. I have heard of boron, and there are some supplements that kind of have a combination of zinc and boron, maybe even Tunga Ali. But on the TRT spectrum, I think what you'd essentially want to find is I would disagree that you could try to optimize it more. If you really wanted to go down that rabbit hole and try to get it up to the 7, I don't think you need it at 1,000, but getting it closer to the 700 would be like a good range that you're going to feel great at. Okay. And the other thing too is I'm going to remind you about like the whole the cognitive effect of what you're going for. So if you don't first manage stress, then we don't know what's going to affect your libido, right? So how much the stress of the business affects libido and affects you cognitively once you're done work. Well, it's like, I'm not saying that more tests wouldn't help, but maybe it even adds to stress, right? Like,
no, you're right.
The thing about testosterone is it can amplify, from what I've heard, it amplifies everything.
Yeah. And that's not what I'm looking for.
So I would say start with doing everything in the immediate to control stress in your evenings. Yeah. See how that affects it. Experiment with Tunga Ali, and we'll go into more details together talking about if we want to go down this rabbit hole, what are the appropriate steps? Do you need a doctor to sign off on this? Do you want to work with your doctor to find those optimal levels? Yeah. Because your at-home Canadian doctor might not be pumped about it because they're way more skeptical of it. I am less skeptical of it because we're not talking about doing just steroids. We're talking about just getting you to an optimal level. And you just mentioned something that I believe in too. We do want to use science to make us live longer. And you're going to lose less muscle mass over time. You're going to recover better. You can do more training. You actually have more you can do. And you're not in a terrible range, but I would argue that maybe we could beef it up a little bit more and have you live that much younger, longer, right?
That's it. Better quality of life through science to have not only a longer life, but better quality of life in those years.
Quality of life. It's all
you've already done it for me, Ryland. Like I shit you not. I feel like, and I know mentally I'm supposed to be 53. Honest to God, I feel like I'm 30. Yeah. And that's where I got to be careful when I'm in the gym, right? Like, and not doing crazy shit. Like, it's like, okay, hold the ego back. Nonetheless, you've revolutionized the way that I look at my fitness. It's had a positive effect on my business. It's had a positive effect on my personal life.
That's great.
So thanks, brother. Really appreciate it.
Love working with you, man. You make my job easy. It's really fun to work with people who are as dedicated as you are to whatever you give them. And once you put the right people with good ambition, you put them on the right set of tracks, and fucking amazing things can happen. Let's go. So we're gonna keep it growing. We're gonna beef you up this winter.
Yeah, man. Sure. Let's go.
Big muscle building phase here coming up, man. I'm excited.
Looking forward to it.
Let's finish off with this. What's your biggest ambition coming down the pipeline?
So. You know what? Full transparency. My goal now, I put this daily on my daily task list, is I want to have 7 figures a month in my business. Ooh, it's massive. it's actually a scary goal. Like it's a big, hairy, scary goal for me to say 6 figures a month. Like I don't get scared when I hear that. 7 figures a month, like that suddenly changes a lot. And like based on what just happened last week, that's the kind of stuff that is going to be the normalcy. So yeah, it would change my life, and it would also change my kids' lives. It would change the lives of everybody around me, because I know I'm going to leave this planet with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be buried in a suit with no pockets. So when I hear about people that have earned it all, and then by the time that they were gone, they gave it all away, like that would honestly be a dream come true for me. I want to be able to teach my children and the people that come in the skills that I know to be able to earn this and be able to share with others. Because there's some people that don't have the wherewithal. Like they're not, like self-actualizing people have no choice but to be. Right. And Ryland, we're in that space. We're giving back to people because we have something to give. And there's some people that are fucking oblivious out there. And I want to help those people too, whether they become self-actualized or just, hey, listen, you need a help. You need a leg up, bro.
I love that. And just so people are aware, you were saying per month. Because
month.
That's a big, and that's how much you've grown. That's how dedicated you've been. Like, I mean, I still remember our conversation before where you're talking about what kind of taxes you're paying. I'm like, oh shit, you're doing good. But like at the same time with all of that, because part of the question that came to my mind is like, why do you need that money? And you're like, this is why, to help my family, to help these people, and to give back more. 100%. And it's like, you talk about the 3 C's, and just that 1 C right there of conviction. That's beautiful. That's why you're doing what you're doing so much, because it's like, this is what I want to define me. And you just the way you talk about it, you're so driven. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that's an amazing thing. And I'll say it, you come with energy no matter what. I rarely don't see you with energy. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. We'll have you on again in the future.
Absolutely. Love it.
And we're going to get ready for a big building phase here, my man.
Let's do it.
Thanks again to Joe for that conversation. I think that was a really fun one. It just flew by for the hour. I wanted to talk way more about his story in entrepreneurship, but he honestly just kept coming back to all the training and nutrition and how big of an influence it's had for him, which is great. Awesome to hear. But I can't reiterate this enough about Joe that makes him so cool is, I said it on the podcast, like this guy's got energy. He's got, but like just spirit. If you meet him, you'll understand. He's positive. He's just always so happy. And it's awesome because you can see that this affects his drive. This makes him so competitive. And I'll just really highlight that last sentiment of like, he wants to have 7-figure months. And it's like, why? Oh, because then I can help more people, because then I'm helping my family more. I'm helping, give money away. And he even wants to give it to charity. It's not even for people he knows. He just wants to make an impact in the world. And so he's using this energy in such a positive, real great way. And I think there's so much to learn from his concepts there of the confidence, conviction, and control, like to be the warrior in the garden, I think was a really beautiful sentiment. And I think people should appreciate all those little things and how it really can apply to you in your life. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have some of these business mindsets of, really evolving your own way you think in your own career. Even if you work for other people, to be really successful at your job, you want to take responsibility for your actions. And I think it's awesome to hear how he was able to translate so much of this from the business mindset into the training mindset. And we had so many things that were analogous to how these practices overlap, how the ego has to know there's a time to push and there's a time to pull, right? As he had mentioned, there's a time not to pull out the sword, and that you just want to tend to the garden and not be, stressing yourself excessively. I thought it was really beautiful to hear his story about how martial arts influenced him and how big of an impact that's had on him. I would honestly say, if you have never tried a martial art, I think at any age, honestly, go try one. It could be boxing, it could be kickboxing, it could be Muay Thai, it could be jiu-jitsu, it could be kung fu, whatever it is. I did karate back in the day, Taekwondo. I wanted to do karate, but I did Taekwondo for 1 year. And you still learn a lot of these practices. It's so important to have a white belt mentality in life, to be open to everything, to knowing nothing. It's a really helpful, really encouraging way to live your life, because it makes life exciting to know how much more you can learn and not getting ahead of yourself with your ego, but finding confidence through practice. I thought it was so beautiful to hear his concept of Curry and the millions of shots that he takes, millions, for having, a few thousand that actually land. That's so important. That's 1 year, right? That's so important that we think about the work behind the scenes. So you get to imagine this in your own training and nutrition. Visualize someone that you've seen make a big difference in their physique. They lost a ton of weight and you don't recognize them. You saw the end part. You saw the 3-point shot. You didn't get to see all the misses and all the trials and tribulations that they go through for years. I'll go back to the Muhammad Ali quote: the battle is won or lost far beyond witnessed. It's before everything. It's all the work that's in the shadows. And that stuff is what really the lifestyle is about. So you want to optimize it. You want to make sure that you're actually enjoying that process. As you can hear with Joe, he's excited about it, but he also appreciates the right time to push and pull. And so we're able to really learn so much in the process about ourselves when we get really passionate about our training and nutrition. And I'm really grateful to be able to work with someone like Joe, someone who just does the things that you direct them to do, and with passion. If anything, you got to pull them back a little bit because they work so hard. These are my favorite kind of clients, because I just got to put you on the right set of tracks, and you get to hear how it's made an impact for them. It was also a really fun conversation to talk about TRT and optimizing hormones. So a lot of people don't think about those practices initially, like how big of a stress can have on you. As he had mentioned, he wants better libido, but where is your mind at when the libido would actually come to, pun intended, rise? Because if you don't have that energy, if you can't turn your brain off at a certain time of day, it's going to be really difficult to feel energy for other things. And so I thought it was a really cool thing that we were able to pinpoint some of these ideas. And then you have to go about even testing your hormones at the appropriate time. And as I mentioned to Joe, we're going to do more research on how we can find a more optimal and honest time for when he can take his hormonal test. And then we'll be able to understand, okay, where are we at actually with your testosterone? And do we need to optimize it more? And things like Tanga Ali that would have a low risk and low cost even for a lot of people. So hopefully you learned a lot from this lesson. Hopefully you learned from some of the things that me and Joe talked about within this episode and how we were able to optimize his health. And, if you are like Joe, you're someone who, follows plans and is driven and really wants to make a difference in their training and nutrition, don't forget that Metabolic Cookie Monster is on sale this week. So if you use that Strong Ambition code, you'll get an extra month off, and no one else is getting that. This is literally just on this podcast. So this is for you as a listener. And again, I'm going to have to raise the prices after. It'll never be that cheap again. So dive into it this week if you can. And we're going into a transformation challenge with the whole program. So everyone in my program will actually be trying to do the best transformation they can over the course of 3 months. And whoever does the best in the transformation challenge gets to win $1,000 cash prize. And I even give a ton of runner-up prizes to my clients. So I give people discounts on the program just for being successful. And this is a great time to do it because we're going into the fall. We got to enjoy our summer. This is where we dive into trying to make a real change. And you can just create great discipline and structure over that course of time. And I intentionally do this in the fall so that people can reverse diet, plan on a maintenance over the holidays, and then go into another cut phase if they want to extend that body transformation, depending on where they're at within their fitness. So there's a whole plan here within the metabolic program, and it really benefits people to dive into something like this during the fall, and it'll benefit you because, again, it's the best time you get the price, and I'll give you that discounted extra month of training on your membership. So I hope you learned a lot from this episode. I hope you had fun with it. Please share it with anyone that you know really might be interested within knowing more about entrepreneurship and how training overlaps with it. Maybe they want to know more about hormonal therapy, and this could be a great episode for them to dive into. And I'll always come back to saying this now. thank you as a listener. I always appreciate people who stay dedicated to the podcast and are willing to listen to us just chat about optimizing your training, nutrition, and mindset, because I always want to help you with your own ambitions, because we know it's not about the pursuit of happiness, but rather it's about the happiness within your pursuit. And I'll catch you next time.